Welcome to the Psychology World podcast. I'm Connor Whiteley, bringing you psychology news, articles, and other interesting psychology-related articles. Where I can find the podcast notes and more interesting psychology-related things, and you can get your free 8 psychology book box set at connorwhiteley.net. Now let's get on to the show. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 72 of the Psychology World podcast with me, Connor Whiteley, and today's episode is on what strong relationships have in common, and it is Friday the 22nd of January 2021 as I record this. So originally this was meant to be an abnormal psychology episode, because after a little hiatus from that topic in that area of psychology, I really wanted to get back to it, but I couldn't find a topic or an article that I was really interested in. So I managed to find this article, and originally I was thinking I was just going to what strong relationships have in common, but then I thought no, because that's just boring and everything, and it's not why you listen to the podcast. I like to think though. So what I've actually done is I've used a lot of personal examples in it. So basically, this is another really personal episode, but it will teach you about social psychology as well. So that's coming up in the content part of today's episode. So moving on to psychology news section. So we're reading from the British Psychological Society Research Digest, and there are some really good articles. So the first one is, here's how personality changes from young adulthood can lead to greater career satisfaction. So, personality traits are once thought to be fairly stable, but recent research has suggested that our personality can alter over time, whether that's due to aging or because we decide to change our traits ourselves. And as personality is linked to behaviour, it follows that we might see different life outcomes as our personality shifts or grows. In a new study in Psychological Science, Kevin A. Toff and team look at the personality changes of teenagers as they move into adulthood. Oh, that sounds interesting. And they find that certain shifts in personality can result in real-world benefits during the early years of a career, suggesting that interventions that increase particular personality traits could make all the difference at work. So this, I think, is really interesting because this week I started my personality psychology module, which might as well do this bit of the personal update now, which I thought originally was going to be quite boring, but it's actually really, really interesting. So I'm definitely going to be mentioning that in the personal update from time to time, because it's really, really interesting. Okay, so another one is revisiting the brain drain effect. Having a phone on the desk doesn't always impair our memory. We all know that using a smartphone interferes with our ability to focus on other things, like driving, but in 2017 a surprising result made international headlines. The mere presence of a switched-off smartphone on the desk can impair working memory. Now, a new study in consciousness and cognition, which has partly been replicated and extended this investigation, has not found evidence to support the brain drain effect. However, the researchers say that we shouldn't start putting all of our phones back on the desk just yet. So this, I think, is really, really interesting, because when I'm doing writing work, university work, though, I have my phone on my desk, and I don't think it really bothers me though. But I think this is a really, really interesting finding now. So, the last one is, psychological flexibility may be key to good relationships between couples and within families. Okay, so what makes for a happy family? The answer, whether you're talking about a couple or a family with kids, is psychological flexibility, according to a new paper in the Journal of Contextual Behavioural Science. That's a bit of a mouthful. Based on a meta-analysis of 174 separate studies, Jennifer Jacks and Donald Rogge at the University of Rochester concludes that flexibility helps and inflexibility hinders our most important relationships. This, I think, is really interesting actually about it all. Okay, so that's enough of the psychology news section, so let's move on to the personal update. So, in my personal update this week, there's not a grand amount of stuff to say, because I've mainly been starting up university again, so that's been quite interesting though, because I've had some really interesting modules like the introduction to personality psychology, and I wasn't actually going to do this, but if you go to connorwhiteley.net/podcast, find today's episode, it's episode 72. Then if you scroll down to the bottom bit, there's actually a video that I really, really recommend to do with personality psychology that I thought was actually quite amazing because because it's all about the psychology of space and how our personality influences the space around us. That I thought was really interesting, and I really recommend that video. And if you're on my email list, then this week I'm actually going to email out the video and some other content for you. But I did get a really beautiful book this week though, for my personality psychology module. It's called, I don't have it near me because I'm in my audio booth, Individual Differences and Personality by Someone Ashton. And because it was hardback and because I didn't know that I was getting it in a hardback, I was really pleased with it because it's a really nice looking book, which, yes, I know it makes me sound so sad that I'm saying that a book can look really nice, but it's an author thing. Speaking of which, though, you can now get my forensic psychology and formulation in a psychotherapy book in hardback on Amazon and at your local bookstore. And I'm really, really pleased though with those two books though, because I think they're really good and I just like them. And then the only other remotely interesting thing though is that Abnormal Psychology 3rd edition is now available on pre-order, and it will be released in April. And the same goes for Psychology of Relationships, a guide to the social psychology of friendships, romantic relationships, pro-social behaviour and more. So that title I really like because I think it's so much better than just Psychology of Human Relationships, because that title is a lot more like descriptive, so that I really like. And I'm so glad that these books are on pre-order because they're basically done now and I can get on to writing other books. So I really am looking forward to having them out in April. And then I wanted to mention that pre-ordering books on non-Amazon platforms like Kobo, Google Play, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble, etc. is actually really helpful to authors, because I won't go into it too much though, but it really helps with the discoverability and helping other people to find the book as well. So if you pre-order the book on non-Amazon platforms, you're not only helping me, you're actually helping other people find the book. So as always, I always love to know your thoughts and feelings on today's episode. So you can always email me, connorwhiteley@connorwhiteley.net. You can always leave a comment on the show notes at connorwhiteley.net, and you can always tweet me on Twitter at sci-fi-whiteley. And as today's episode is on human relationships, then I thought that it'd be the perfect opportunity for the sponsored product to be Psychology of Relationships 3rd edition. So this updated book I really enjoy because it goes into a lot more depth and it goes into human relationships a lot more. Explains how our biology, how our psychological factors and how our social factors can cause our relationships to form. Whether this be social or romantic relationships. And something that I really like about this edition though is that the pro-social behaviour chapters, the bystander effect, altruism, how do we promote pro-social behaviour, and other similar features though, that's that section's been updated massively. So I really, really recommend that. So that is Psychology of Relationships, a guide to the social psychology of friendships, romantic relationships, pro-social behaviour and more. So I really, really recommend that book, and that's available on all major ebook and all major print retailers like Amazon, Kobo, or Google Play. If it's not there when you listen to it, then it should be there at some point this week. Then you can also order the paperback, the large print and the hardback version from Amazon and at your local bookstore. So that's enough of the personal update. So let's move on to the content part of today's episode. So we're moving on to the content part of today's episode. So we're going to be talking about what strong relationships have in common using social psychology. So as I've already said though, that this was meant to be an abnormal psychology episode, but I couldn't find an article. But I still really like today's episode because I get quite personal about my own strong relationships. So hopefully you'll still really enjoy today's episode. But as always, nothing on this podcast is any sort of official or professional advice, whether it's relationship, medical, or any other type of advice. So the first thing that strong relationships have in common is care. And caring is a really important factor in relationships, which we all know that, because if two people in a relationship don't care about one another, then well, for starters, what's the point of them being in a relationship? But the relationship is still likely to fail, simply because as humans, we don't tend to maintain relationships when we don't care about them or when we're not invested in them. And I think we sadly have a number of friendships that we can always say that about. I know I certainly can, which is a bit bad, and it's a shame. So, which is why I really am trying to rejuvenate friendships, and I really am trying to keep in contact with quite a few people, especially since we are still in a pandemic. Okay, so but the main reason that you can show that you care about your partner or your friend is that you can say nice stuff to them to show that you care, and you can also through your actions. And I'm actually gonna tell you that during the blog post, I almost wrote the really inappropriate sentence of or what you do to your partner, which I thought, nope, I cannot write that. And then one way to do this is that you could get them a nice gift. Okay, so another thing that I didn't know about until today's episode was this thing called cheerleading. This is another really important feature of a strong relationships, because this is where you lift each other up and you support each other. And I really like this idea because in my own strong relationships, with past best friends, supporting each other was really important to me because this made the friendship stronger. I knew that they cared about me and they knew that I cared about them. So it's really important to support each other. Yes, and this can be as simple as simple as them just being able to call you or anything, but it's all about being supportive to one another. So another one is confidence, and this isn't you being confident yourself, or in actual fact, I guess it is something saying, I'm just going to read what I wrote in the blog post. Okay. Whenever I am or I have been in a strong relationship before, this is really critical to me because I find it quite difficult to trust people, simply because I've been betrayed in so many friendships before. It's really difficult for me to trust people. So for a strong relationship to be good for me and for me to be in a strong relationship in the first place, I have to have confidence, and thankfully so do tons of other people. This isn't just a point that I've made up. So in short, I have to know that I'm safe, and I have to be confident with that person, whether it's confiding in them, talking about personal matters, or even just telling them secrets, and just simply be simply them just being my confidant. And I think we all have certain friendships and romantic relationships where this is really important. So another one is communication. And in my Psychology of Relationships book, I do give a minor story about this, but the short version of this, though, is that back in 2018, I thought that one of my closest friends was actually blanking me, but in reality, and also this led to a bit of a rougher patch, but it actually turned out that he was going through something because he didn't communicate it with me. We went through a bit of a rougher patch. So again, though, communication is really important in strong relationships, because if you don't have open communication, then this can lead to difficulties and strain the relationship. So my sort of non-official advice here, is that if you haven't spoken to a friend or anything for a little while and you want to start getting your friendship or whatever back on track, just start talking to them, just communicate with them. And in the Psychology of Relationships book, I actually go into quite a few theories about relationships, including a great study called Sheldon. There's a researcher called Sheldon, which if you're a fan of The Big Bang Theory, really recommend checking out that study. Okay, so the last one is compromise. So I know I spoke about this last month in an episode, in the How Couples Can Stop Arguing episode, but compromise is really important because we all have some quite funny stories about compromise in relationships. So one of my funny stories, which was my friend wanted me to go out with him and some of his other friends, which I did not like his other friends, which I know that could make me seem like a horrible person, but you didn't meet them. So we had to compromise, and I basically said to him, I will go out with you and your friends on the condition we do something I want to do at another point in time, which thankfully he agreed to. Oh, God, I really could not go on because I've got some great stories, but nope, I will be restraining myself. So if we go back to the episode that I was just talking about, though, so we know that compromise is key to a good relationship, especially a strong relationship, because it shows that you want the relationship to work. Because if you did not want anything to work out, if you didn't want your friendships to work out, you wouldn't bother. You really wouldn't. And it also shows that you're willing to sacrifice your own needs to satisfy the other person, which I'm going to say this to you right now. Well done. That's a big thing. So you should be proud of yourself. So I really hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. Please consider checking out Psychology of Relationships, available on pre-order on all major ebook retailers. And if you know someone who would like to enjoy today's episode, then please tell them about it. I will be extremely grateful. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see the show notes, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. And if you want a free 8-book psychology box set, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.